OC time. This one is from my senior year of high school, about 10 years ago. Be me. Just start lurking on K. Really want to go into woods. Recently got my FID. SKS for my birthday. Fuck yeah. Invite my only has-gun friend along to go camping near Appalachian Trail. He says yes. Brings a Winchester lever action in 30-30. Plan is to start going up northern part of Massachusetts, follow the trail south for 3 days. We brought plenty of food and fuel, not much water, as we planned to be near rivers most of the time. Buddy brought a harmonica. From now on, I'll call him John. We get dropped off near where we want to start and start hiking. Covering pretty decent ground for the first few hours. Slowed down a bit after a quick lunch, still moving along pretty well. We stop for the night, set up our tent. I start the fire, boil water we collected. John cooks up some of our food, plays harmonica a bit. We're just sitting around the fire eating and talking. Bring up the fact that we haven't seen anyone all day. He shrugs it off. It's a bit shitty weather and cold, so it's not that strange. Put out the fire and we go to bed, sleeping with unloaded rifles. We get up the next day, strike camp, eat cold breakfast, and start hiking again. Suddenly we hear loud footsteps coming up the trail behind us, running really fast. We look behind us, figure it's a trail runner or a deer running from something. Ready rifles just in case. The second we turn around, the sound stops. We're a little weirded out, but continue along for a bit. I realize that the woods are quiet as fuck ever since we heard the running. Mention it to John. Relax, man, it's almost winter. Most things are probably just hiding away in their burrows. Decide I'm just being a pussy. Ignore the silence. We stop for lunch near a stream, and John collects a bit of water from it. Sniffs at it to make sure it's semi-clean. Recoils. What the fuck? Anon, smell this water. Wary that he's gonna splash me in the face, I take it and smell it. Oh god, this is awful. Smells like rotten meat and piss. We follow the stream upriver to see if a dead deer or bear fell in and is rotting away in it. After a few minutes of walking, we come to a cave that the stream is flowing out of. John walks in right away. Hey, John, wait a minute, we shouldn't... Oh, come on, Anon. I've got a flashlight and I'm not gonna fall in, so let's just check it out. Okay, I guess. Grab my own flashlight and my SKS, following John into the cave. We come to a huge-ass cliff where the water falls down. Not really a waterfall, but whatever. It's smooth as hell, made of this really shiny black rock. Alright, John, looks like we can't go any farther. Let's go back. Okay, Anon, just let me look over here. I thought I saw... Ah, look at this, man! A staircase cut into the side of the cliff, barely visible unless you look straight at it. John immediately starts climbing up. I follow him, but I'm just about shitting my pants. We're about halfway up when suddenly we hear this voice. Help me! Help me! Help me! Help me! Just repeating the same thing over and over in the exact same tone of voice, exact same inflection. It sounded like a broken record. The voice was creepy as fuck. It sounded like a human voice coming through a fucked up speaker. Crackly at the edges and sort of deeper than it should be. Obviously feminine. It's coming from the top of the cliff. John shouts up to it. Don't worry, we're coming for you, just hold on. John, wait a goddamn minute. What the fuck, Anon? Are you just gonna walk away from somebody who might be stranded or hurt? No, but I don't think that... Then let's fucking go. He double times it up the stairs, rifle slung over his shoulder. Help me! Help me! Help me! Help me! Voice gradually getting louder and more distorted. He's going a lot faster than I am. That's what saves me. He gets to the top of the stairs, shines flashlight towards the sound. Ma'am, are you... Suddenly stops talking. I'm just a flight below the top. I can hear him walking. Sounds really jerky, but steady, like a metronome or something. Steps suddenly stop. At the exact same time, the voice stops yelling for help. I just barely hear John whisper, "Of course, whatever you need." Crunching noise, sound of dripping liquid.
Help me! Help me! Help me! Help me!
It's a different voice, and it takes me a second to recognize it. It's John's voice. Oh shit. Fucking sprint out of there. It's a miracle I don't break my neck on those fucking steps. Managed to contact a friend who was going to pick us up in 2 days. Tell him something got John. Freaking out. He calls the cops/forest department. Tells me I have to meet them near a ranger station at a small town. I managed to get out of the woods, meet up with cops. I claim a bear ate him. Lots of questioning. Realize they think I might have murdered him. Finally break down and tell this old grizzled ranger dude what really happened when we're alone. He just nods. There's some strange things what happen up in those mountains. Might be I'll head up there soon and take care of it. What the fuck? Is this guy serious? He smiles at me and nods towards the wall of his office at the ranger station. A bunch of mounted skulls. They look like fucked up deer, moose, and goat heads. Curvy horns, long jawbones, and huge ass eye sockets. Now, I'm off to go kill that bear of yours. I'll make sure them city boys know that you didn't do nothing. I'm sorry about that friend of yours. Good hunting. Thank you kindly. I still can't get over it. Especially since about 2 weeks after that, the paper printed a story about an individual who wished to remain nameless that had taken down a rabid grizzly not too far off the Appalachian Trail. I would like to start off by saying that I don't have a fucking clue why I'm posting this on X, or really, at all. Maybe I'm afraid of dying or something. The events described in this story happened a month and a half ago in Shenandoah, West Virginia, although I typed this up about 2 weeks ago. I just haven't really had the guts to post this until what happened yesterday. The story starts in late September, when my family went to go visit our relatives, who invited us to go celebrate one of them, Desiree, getting like $2,000 in some scratch-off lottery thing. They live in this really fucking shitty part of Shenandoah that people from Charlestown, Shepherdstown, and Ranson, basically the least rednecky parts of West Virginia, like to call the Squalor Holler. It's way up in the mountain and exactly like how everyone pictures it when they hear about it. Nothing but ramshackle shacks, rusty ass rebuilt trailers, everything fucking covered in decades old Christmas decorations because, well, they're all too busy being smelly rednecks to ever clean up. Real Deliverance type of shit, just no rivers or canoes. The relatives we were visiting are absolutely confirmed inbreeders, all cousins fucking each other. We don't refer to them as aunt, uncle, whatever, just relatives. Not terrible people or anything, just absolutely cartoonish and depressing hillbilly stereotypes. So anyway, we're up here in this godforsaken trailer, and it sucks. There's like 8 of them, plus me, my dad, my mom, and my sister. About 2 hours in, my mom takes my cell phone so that I can focus on the family time together, which is bullshit. All we did the whole time was eat TV dinners and be forced to watch NASCAR and shit. After like 6 hours of this shit, about 10 minutes before we're all supposed to leave, it starts raining. We know how treacherous the roads can get up on the mountain, so we decided to wait for the rain to die down. Flash forward 2 hours later, and it's fucking dark as hell, 10 o'clock, and there's a flood warning for the area. I have my phone back by the time, no reception though, of course, and I'm playing Tetris and Texas Hold'em and stuff, when suddenly I start hearing my dad start losing his shit in the next room. I walk over, and it turns out that they let slip that they'd buried their kid, Thomas, outside, and apparently were afraid the rain would wash up his body or some other horse shit. The kid was like 6. He was attacked by a dog and they never told the cops. Just fucking buried him like he was a family pet. My dad's flipping his shit, and rightfully so, because, you know, we live in the 21st century and all. So our relatives all say they'll sort it out in the morning. My parents tell me and my sister to stay in the same room as them during the night, and we do. None of us really suspected that they had killed Thomas or anything, since they are really peaceful. They didn't even own any guns aside from the one old-timey double-barrel shotgun they had on a mantle. Nevertheless, we were creeped the fuck out, and intended to tell the cops in the morning once we got to town. So, it was like 3 in the morning, I couldn't sleep, power had gone out for the 5th time or so, and I'm not able to charge my dead phone. Worst part is, I could see Thomas's little grave right outside the window. Little cross on it and everything, and I assumed the kid couldn't have been buried deep at all since they were so worried about him just washing up out of the grave. So I was just fixated on it, kept being drawn to looking out through the window. And then I saw the fucking worst thing in my life. Something was creeping through the trees toward the house. I stared at it for a while, but couldn't get a good look at it since it was raining and the brush was so thick. For a few minutes I assumed it was 2 really pale horses, kind of ambling through the woods side by side. But then it walked into the moonlight, and I saw that it was all one thing, like a kind of human torso, but wider. It finally stepped into full view, and I saw it had something like 6 legs, kind of somewhere between a beetle's legs and a horse's legs. 2 arms, right where someone would normally have them, but they were about half a foot longer than any normal man's arms. It had a bald head, but the face looked like some sort of fucking bizarre masquerade ball kind of mask. This fucking clenched up, furrowed forehead, and a nose that looked sort of like a crow's or a raven's beak. It didn't have eyes either, just like the depressions where eyes would go. It looked like it had a human mouth underneath its proboscis. What still strikes me to this day is that it seemed to have a penis too, like right under the abdomen where a normal person's dick would be. The thing moved sort of gracefully. It made these soft thumping noises when it moved. It must have been like 7-8 feet tall, but sounded like it weighed maybe only 150 pounds at most. It starts walking towards Thomas's grave, and then I finally snap out of whatever trance I was in and just scream. My mom is the first to wake up, and I tell her to look out the window. She rushes over and doesn't really seem to understand what she's looking at. After a minute though, the thing bends down and starts pawing at the grave with its hands. My dad and Jasper rush in, and Jasper just fucking loses his shit. Screams like a little girl, runs back out of the room yelling for his father, yelling, "It's outside, it came and it's outside!" I look back and see this thing is digging furiously at the ground, kicking up huge mounds of dirt. I hear these sounds of feet running around the house. I think they were looking for the shotgun. The thing reaches into the hole and grabs up what I assume was Thomas's body by the leg in one hand. The thing kind of gallops back into the woods, snapping all of these branches and shit. And then, that's when we all hear it. A kid crying. The sound of a child sobbing and crying from the direction that the thing took off in. We left as soon as the rain let up, at like 5 a.m. I don't even think we told anyone out the house. Drove straight back to Ranson, only stopping for gas. No one said a word to each other. My family refuses to speak about what happened. I tried to bring it up once, just to make sure it was real. My dad told me to shut the fuck up, so I did. I typed this up about 3 weeks after it happened, but just saved it to a notepad file and left it alone. Never mentioned it to any of my friends or anything. Just tried to erase it from my mind by getting absolutely fucked up drunk whenever my thoughts lingered on it. And it mostly worked, up until yesterday. See, I work at this gas station in Ranson, from 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. I work the register, keep the place clean, and take out the trash. And yesterday, when I was bringing the trash bags over to the back of the building for the dude in the morning to take care of, I heard what I assumed to be some junkie fucking around in the dumpster. I yelled at whoever it was a couple of times to get the hell out before I called the cops. But as I walked towards the source of the noise, I suddenly heard those same footsteps. That soft thump, hooves or feet, or whatever the hell they were. I turned right around and went back into the store and hid behind the counter. I look over at the outside security monitor and see some kind of movement from just off screen. Something huge casting a shadow and moving. Catch a glimpse of, I don't know, an elbow or something. It was a pale limb darting in and out of view. It had to have been the same thing. I waited for it to leave, and after a while, it did. I woke up behind the counter at 6 a.m. this morning to my manager giving me this fucking look, like I'm a drug addict or something. I went home and typed the rest of this up, and that's about it. I used to know what you might call that kid in middle school. He always smelled like he shit himself and wore the same clothes for fucking weeks on end. That is, his wardrobe consisted exclusively of real run-of-the-mill generic pajamas. The kind where it's a completely solid color, the shirt buttons up and has a pocket for some reason, and there's a matching pair of pants. He wore that to school, and he wouldn't take the fuckers off until they were fucking made of stains, and smelled so bad that he actually noticed. He was your typical chubby, long-haired, greasy neckbeard, except it was the 7th grade, and he couldn't grow facial hair. Actually, that's not entirely true. He grew a really fucking weird, thin mustache that was composed of the only barest number of hairs. But his upper lip always looked wet, so you couldn't help but notice that it was there. Anyways, he liked to bill himself as a video game programmer. The truth was, he could only program terrible-ass text adventures in Visual Basic, and it was a damn miracle if they lasted more than 3 minutes and weren't easy as shit. He brought these fucking retarded games into school every other week, burned to blank CD-ROMs, and he would ask everyone to play them in the computer lab. They were always really retarded. You're completely predictable, you wake up in a dark cell, or an alien spaceship, or in a forest kind of deal. Except for one he brought in that was different. That's not to say it was actually good, or even really a fucking game to be frank, just that it stood out among his other releases. This one he called Happy Mommy, and I'm the sorry sack of shit he insisted should play it. It started out in the usual command prompt window his games always had, and with the pointless ass beginning text asking me to type "go" to begin the game. Except this time when I typed "go", it didn't start out in typical text adventure style telling me I woke up somewhere and there's a useful item in the room in 4 directions. This time it started out saying, "Happy Happy Mommy, 1 day gone." Just like that, in all lowercase, as was standard fare in his fucking weirdos dumbass games. I wasn't really sure what the fuck to do at this point, so I asked him, and he told me to type in "mommy." So that's what I did, and I returned "Happy Happy Mommy, 2 day gone." Again, just like that, the S missing after day and everything. I didn't really know what else to do, so I typed in "mommy" again. This time I got "Happy Happy Mommy, 3 day gone." Now I tried to type "mommy" again, but it didn't work this time. So I asked him what the hell I'm supposed to do now, and he said to type "feel good," so I did. And I got "Happy Happy Mommy, 4 day gone. Happy Mommy, feel good. Happy Mommy, feel good." And then it just closed itself. I went on with the rest of my day, completely fucking confused at what the shit he made me play. He came to school the next day, and that is the last time I ever saw him. Really spooky ending, I guess. The whole class was obviously wondering what happened to him, and all the teachers made it seem really mysterious and creepy because they were real insistent that we don't fucking talk about it. No one found out what the hell happened for the rest of our entire school, from 8th grade to high school graduation, outside of the obviously bullshit rumors. Years later, long after I was a grown adult, I came back into contact with one of my middle school teachers, and we chatted up a bit about the good old days and all the retarded assholes that went to my middle school, I guess because I was an adult, he felt more comfortable around me, even if he was still way older than me. So I asked him what the hell ever happened to that kid. Now, this next part, I swear to God, is not made up. Apparently over the week before he disappeared, this kid's mom had fucking hanged herself. And since he was an only child, and she was raising him on her own, and no one in the neighborhood really knew them, no one fucking knew about it, and the kid just kept going to school and coming home to her corpse for 5 days before someone took notice of this and looked into it. And according to this particular teacher, this kid, I shit you the fuck not, had been fucking his mom's corpse almost the entire time. I was never actually told what happened to him after Child Protective Services took him away, and I'm not sure anyone actually knows. B13. Living in Mirandela, a small city in the north of Portugal. Starting my 9th grade. Decent circle of friends, but nonetheless, a bit of a loner most of the time. Notice a new girl joined the class. Cute brunette, also seemingly around my age. Had a bit of a goth style to her, not to the point of piercings and black nails, but almost always dressed in black. Get paired up with her for a project on the first week, and end up chatting. Find out we have the same taste in music and movies, and inevitably become good friends. She was fatherless, moved into town with her mother recently, ridiculously intelligent, far more than you would expect from anyone her age, was even enthusiastic about philosophy, and got me into reading Schopenhauer and Sauter at fucking 13. Was also a loner, didn't hang out with many colleagues other than me, mainly because her long existentialist reflections seemed to bore everyone. Eventually became really close friends, almost platonic lovers. One day she invites me to her house for dinner. Actually a little surprised by how long it took to get invited to her place, given how often she dropped by mine. That evening, we meet by the school and she leads the way. We start heading out of town. Half an hour later, we're walking around tall grass fields and dirt paths as night settles in. Can't help but feel a little scared, since I don't want to be out in complete darkness. She tells me not to worry and kindly holds my hand. After maybe another half hour, with almost total darkness setting in, we follow a dirt road into a forested area. Fear is really kicking in. About to beg her to go back when she suddenly says, "We arrived." In front of us is an old, large, degraded house, heavily obscured by darkness, but nonetheless, being a striking sight. Not exactly a mansion, but still really large, with 3 floors, and an old Alfa Romeo parked on the driveway. The door is unlocked. We walk in. She turns on the lights. The interior actually looks decent. Lots of old furniture, but all of it relatively well taken care of, unlike the torn up exterior implied. My fear turns into curiosity. Can't help but feel intrigued by the house, and bombard her with questions about it. The best she can say is that her mother got it as her heritage from a distant uncle a few years ago, and only now felt that it would be fitting to move here. After showing me the bottom floor around, proudly displaying her collections of LPs and VHSs in the living room, the 80s Philips VHS player was the closest to a modern apparatus in the entire house, and her packed up and thoroughly organized bookshelves in the office, she takes me to the dining room, asks me to wait there while she goes upstairs to call her mother for dinner. As she leaves the room, I contemplate how silent the house is. The only audible sounds being the tremulous treetops in the surrounding woods exposed to the wind, and the light hum of an electricity generator, probably around the back. Somewhat confused with the whole situation, but far more intrigued by my friend and her mother's eccentric lifestyle than scared by it. In a moment, she comes back, tells me her mother is working in the attic and wants us to have dinner there. Now I'm really confused. What is her mother working on in the attic, and why can't she come down for dinner instead? She explains her mother is a dressmaker and uses the attic as her studio, and as such, spends the entire day there and doesn't want to interrupt her work to go downstairs. Unsatisfactory explanation, but alright. As we get to the upper floor, I notice it is in significantly poorer condition than the lower. The walls of the corridor we pass by look slightly dirty, and much of the wooden floor covering seems to be torn off. She tells me not to mind that division and explains her mother is still in the process of refurnishing the house. The attic stairs are at the end of the corridor. We climb them up. The attic is an ample but poorly lit space. I am assaulted by a labyrinth of dresses hanged in washing lines spread across the attic, most of them looking ripped and dirty. Definitely unlike anything a dressmaker would be producing. A disgusting smell reeked across the room. I can't even properly describe how unpleasant it was. She just calmly makes her way through all the clothes. I try to keep up while covering my face in disgust. "Hey Mom, here's a friend I told you about," I hear my friend say. Finally come out at the end of the mess. Regret doing so in the following second as my brain processes what I'm suddenly looking at. Right in front of me is a morbidly decaying corpse, with almost more bone visible than the horrendous rotting flesh, sitting on a chair in front of a small table with a lit candle over it. I can't even properly react to what the fuck is this goddamn thing. "Now that we're all together, we can finally have dinner at last," my friend says, seemingly talking to the rotting cadaver before her. Nope, nope, nope the fuck out. Heart pounding faster than it ever did in my entire life. Run through the labyrinth of dresses and quickly head downstairs. Rush to the front door of the house as fast as I can. She starts screaming angrily at me. I have no idea of what the fuck she's saying, and I don't even take time to listen to it. Smash through the front door, run away into the surrounding forest with no idea of where to go. The only thing I can make out of all of her spontaneous screaming is an almost tear-jerked, "Don't leave me," as I rush into the woods. Run through the pitch-black forest for what seemed like torturous hours for my young teenager brain. Cry until I'm out of tears to pour out. End up finding a highway. The first driver that passes by and notices me on the side of the road miraculously stops and gives me a ride back into town. Get back home. Parents are surprised to hear me arrive close to midnight, but immediately understand something happened as soon as they see me walk into the living room covered in sweat, with my clothes torn up from running through the middle of the woods. Tell them the shit that I went through. Needless to say, they were skeptical about such an absurd sounding story, but nonetheless presumed that, was I telling the truth? I must have been the victim of a prank from her, eventually involving a false corpse dummy, or similar. Decide they are going to talk with our teachers to track down our parents, and shed some light on her inappropriate attitude. They go to the school the next day to clear it up, far too damn scared to leave my house. And at the same time I was terrified to be in my house given she knew where I lived. Invited over the beefiest friend I had at the time, under the paranoia of her showing up. Parents came back, told me she was registered into school by her mother during early summer vacations. The school management wasn't able to contact the mother ever since. No phone calls were ever picked up, and given no one understood where her address was located, all letters were returned to sender. Given how many problems the lack of contact with her mother was causing, they tried calling the girl to clear everything up on that exact moment, but she was missing that day. And so was she missing throughout the rest of the week. And so was she missing throughout the next week. And so was she missing throughout the rest of the month. Was invaded by a mist of self-concern and a legitimate concern for her. On one hand, my juvenile couldn't help but imagine she could be up to something. On the other hand, I was seriously worried about her, and fearing for what could have happened to that poor desperate lunatic. We tried filing a missing person report to the police, but we didn't have her face, hardly knew anyone who spoke to her, and still weren't capable of reaching her mother. It eventually ended up being futile when we had nothing but her name to prove that she even existed, and she was never heard of again. It's been close to an entire decade since that happened. It's been some years after I moved to the capital, but I still often go north to visit my family. And I still know that town like the palm of my hand. And I still have no idea where that damn house of terror truly is.